It's Wednesday, Hump Day. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. I'm Maddie Margarita here with Diana Pardee on Tech. Every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Daylight Time, we welcome a new author to our channel to talk about their books and their work. This morning, we're lucky to have with us Quan Huynh. Quan is the best-selling author of Sparrow in the Razor Wire, Finding Freedom from Within While Serving a Life Sentence. After spending 22 years in and out of correctional institutions, Quan was paroled from a life sentence in 2015 and created his first company 6 months later. The following year, he received the Peace Fellowship Award for his work with the Alternatives to Violence Project. Quan has been featured in Entrepreneur, PBS Newshour, and numerous other publications and podcasts. Welcome, Quan.
Thank you for having me.
Always nice to see you again.
Yes, it's great to see you again, Maddie.
So for people who don't know, let's talk a little bit about, do you have your book with you? Let's take a look at the.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful cover. Very evocative. Why don't you tell people a little bit about the story and why you wrote the book?
Sure. Yeah, my book, it's called Sparrow in the Razor Wire. Its subtitle says Finding Freedom from Within While Serving a Life Sentence. The book is written for men that are doing long or life-term sentences. And in it, I share how did I come to my own sense of freedom years before I paroled from my own life sentence. That's who it was originally written for. That was my target audience. But since it's been published, I've found quite a bit of people even out here that have read it and have said that I guess we all live in prisons of some sort, and so they really enjoyed the book.
Okay, well, it's so interesting. So, how did you approach writing your story, or this story, and being objective and authentic, so that you would relate to your audience? How did you approach doing that?
Well, I went through this process out in Austin. It was through a scribe, and we laid out an outline. I got really clear on who my avatar, who the person I was writing for. Once I got clear on that, because when I was incarcerated, I knew when I started coaching the men around me and helping them prepare for the parole board, I was able to help probably 10, 12 men go home from the parole system. And these were all men with life sentences, which is not an insignificant amount. But I realized every time I go back into prison, guys will find out that I used to have a life sentence, and they'll talk to me. And within like 5-10 minutes, I know I can help them. I could help them prepare, but there's no way I can do that. So this was my way of doing it. So when I laid out my outline in Austin, we laid out the avatar and said, who am I writing for? And every time I'm putting in a story or I'm sharing something about my story, my question was, is this relevant for my avatar? How will them investing their time to read this next sentence or this next paragraph help them in some way? And that's the kind of the way I approached it. So even when it was difficult or I was facing the challenging parts in my life story, I just had to remind myself, this is a small sacrifice to pay to continue to help somebody that's still inside.
So there were difficult parts in your life, and you confronted them. Not everybody can do that, but how did you, when you were in prison, how did you get around those limits that were there? What was able to help you turn yourself or your outlook around?
So I've done a total of 22 years of my life in and out of correctional institutions. It wasn't until the 10th or 12th year of my life sentence, up until that point, I would have to say, like, when I went into prison, there was not really a sense of remorse. And to be clear, I went to prison for murder. It was I was heavily involved with a very violent and and ruthless Vietnamese gang. And I ended up shooting and killing a man by the name of Minh Nguyen in Los Angeles in 1999, and tried to shoot and kill his 3 friends. So I was tried for the death penalty. They found me guilty of second-degree murder and gave me a life sentence, which basically meant that in the state of California, I was going to die. So for the first 10, 12 years of my sentence, I would have to say, like, I just lived my life. Like, okay, I'm gonna die. This is the way I want to live. And there was really no self-reflection or personal responsibility or anything. It was like around the 10th to 12th year, several things happened. Of my little niece. She was a newborn, and she looked exactly like how my brother did as a little kid, and it just took me back to my childhood. Like, how did I end up here? What's going on with my life? And that same year, also my grandfather passed away. That's my father's father, and that also reminded me of my own father, who passed away when I was a 13-year-old kid. And so all these things was in my head, like, am I meant to die? How did my life end up like this? One thing is, I've always been a bookworm, so that is how I got my escape. And I've been known to read like 3 or 4 books simultaneously. So during that time, I was just reading books on a lot of like entrepreneurship and business books, but somehow I go down these rabbit holes of following authors and reading in the acknowledgements and see things. So I went down these rabbit holes, and somehow I stumbled on the books of the saints, particularly left amazing legacies. And I was very drawn by these stories. And then following that same rabbit trail, I got involved with like books on mindfulness and effective communication, and suddenly a different world of looking at conflict and things like that. So it's just one day on the prison yard when I stood there and I said, like, why does prison have to be punishment? Why can't this be a place where I can make myself into a better person, even if I'm supposed to die in here? Like, I could leave my own legacy of sorts. And I realized I could. And that small subtle shift in thinking makes all the difference in the world. I remember the sun was coming up over those hills. I could feel the warmth from it. In the individual blades of grass, I could see the little drops of dew. And up above me in the razor wire, I heard a sparrow chirping. And I tell everyone, they'd probably been chirping my whole prison term, and I never heard it. But that day I heard it. And from that day, prison was no longer this cold, harsh, ugly place. It became a place of tranquil beauty. It became a place where I could feel connected to other human beings, and I could see them as we're all just on the journey. Some of them much further along, and some of them perhaps not even awakened yet. But it was just all a journey, and we can make ourselves whatever way we wanted to. And that's just how I began to approach each day of my prison life in there. Basically waking up every morning, like, what does the universe have in store for me today? How can I make a difference how can I make my life better today? How can I choose something better today? And it just became a continued process of refinement. And that's basically how the transition started. And then 5 years later, I went to the parole board, and they said, you know what, we feel that you're no longer a threat to society. And that's when I paroled back in November of 2015.
It's such an amazing story, and we've talked before, but I think you would think, can everybody relate to this story? But like we said in the beginning, everybody places limits on themselves, whether somebody places limits on you or you place limits on yourself. These are it's an inspirational story, and it's inspirational what you did when you were incarcerated, but once you got out, what you did was really inspiring as well. So you want to talk a little bit about what you did when you got out and how you started your business and where you are now?
Sure. I started my first company 6 months after I came home. It's a commercial cleaning company, still running to this day. I used to work in a prison hospital, so we used to run a team that basically we sanitize, polish, and maintain the whole hospital. It was spotless. And I came home, I saw an opportunity to create a cleaning company. I was working in real estate at the time and found out that the building owner was looking for a new janitorial company. So I was involved with this organization inside prison called Defy Ventures. It's a nonprofit that helps men and women with criminal histories to transform their lives through the journey of entrepreneurship. I was involved with them when I came home. So there was just this constant in my mind and in my ear, what's the opportunity? What are opportunity to create a business? And I saw one inside the real estate firm I was working at. So all I did was I got onto GoDaddy and I said, okay, what is the name of my company going to be? And I looked up on GoDaddy, like gold janitors, platinum janitors, and they were all taken. So then I said, what about jade janitors? And jade, you know, Asians, we love the stone jade, and there was no jade janitors taken. So I purchased that domain name, $9.99. And then I emailed the building owner. My name's Quan Huynh. I'm the CEO and founder of Jade Janitors. I didn't have an employee. I didn't have no team. I didn't even have a business, but that's part of what they teach at Defy is, hey, how do you transform your hustle? And so over the span of emails, scans, and looking things up, he told me, okay, can you send me a copy of your business license and insurance? I didn't know what that was. So I had to ask a family member, went to the county courthouse, filed my DBA. He asked me to send insurance policy. I got onto Google, what is janitorial insurance? What are standard things? Purchased that. And that was my first big gamble, like, okay, can I commit to this? And I purchased a policy for 1 year, sent it to them. They asked me to give a quote. So within 4 days, we landed that contract. I hired my first employee. And then from there, I've just continued to slowly build it out. So that was my first company. Then my family expanded. My family also opened a restaurant. So I also got to be involved with that. From concept, the beginning concept of it, to daily operations, interviewing, and then training and running daily operations of the restaurant. Then Defy Ventures expanded out here to Southern California, asked if I'd be interested in joining their team. So about 3.5 years ago, I joined their team. So today I work as the senior program manager for Southern California for entrepreneurship programs. I left the family restaurant and real estate, but I get to do meaningful work, go back into the prisons. I still have my company on the side, and then got to publish the book September of last year.
It's, you know, it's such an inspiring book for anybody who is either struggling or feels like they're stuck. I would highly recommend this book. So I have one more question. I mean, this was a huge project, writing the book,
Yes.
and it's a commitment. So what was the hardest part about writing the book for you?
The hardest part was dealing with the resistance, because I gave myself a schedule, 1 hour a day, 6 days a week. And my minimum is 250 words each day. That was the schedule I laid out. And just, you know, waking up in the morning, I said it's 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I have to sit down and write. The hardest part were the days when I go, I don't know what I'm going to write about, but then I just have to plop down. And then, or the days when I'm placing myself back into prison, placing myself back in the juvenile hall, and then like feeling and living and breathing it again and being able to write it. So I get into that space so I could write it. So those were difficult. Luckily, I was very clear on my avatar, and that's when I just had to remind myself, this is a small sacrifice to pay for the men that I've left behind. And that's when I could just work through the resistance of it. So that, and then of course, editing. I hated editing part of it, but
it's, you know, as a writer, you hear somebody who's been through what you've been through, talk about writing being hard as well. Is sort of a little validating. So that's nice to hear that everybody has those similar challenges. But, you know, the last time we talked, you talked about a concept. Was it the truth table or the table of truth? Can you review that? Because that really stuck with me, even to today.
Okay.
I think about it.
Yeah, it was a spin-off an exercise that I facilitated in prison, and it was always called the table of truth. Like who do you have at this table, and what would they say? So yeah, there were times when I'm struggling with these challenges of placing myself back in. So I had to just ask myself, okay, at my table where I seated, in my mind is like, okay, who are these people that I'm sitting at this table, and basically like my table of advisors, and what would they say? So at my table were my avatar, the person that's incarcerated. The tape also at my table was my 8, 9, 10-year-old self. At my table was my father who had passed away, and at my table was Min the Win, the man that I shot and killed. So that was my table of truth. Like, so when I'm struggling, or if I go, is this story relevant? I don't know, and I could just like ask the people at my table, should I proceed with this story, or is this? And a lot of times, especially when it's uncomfortable, I go, you know what? I don't think I should go there and talk about this. But then the answer from my table of truth was always, no, this is what you have to write.
Yeah, so interesting. Well, you know what? I'd love to hear you talk more about that. Maybe you can come to SCWA and talk to us a little bit more about that, because I think that's such an interesting
Sure.
concept for any author who wants to write a story that's genuine and authentic and confront things in their past and use them in a constructive, honest way. I think that's such a great concept. All right. Well, so we talked about your book. We've talked about what you're doing. I hope everyone out there has a sense of what they'd be in for. I hope you buy this book if you can. I think if you can't buy it, where else is it available? I know that you can find several copies in prison because you donated. Is that a?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just got, I think up to date, I've been able to donate close to 3,000 books into prisons. We just got approval 2 weeks ago from the head librarian of the California Department of Corrections to distribute my book throughout every single prison law library in the state of California. So that was a huge win. So they let me donate. Yeah. So basically I go, that means my book is now in every single prison in the state of California. So that's one state down, 49 more to go, but that's my mission. Yeah. They could find my book right off Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or they get it right off my website. Sparrow-in-the-razorwire.com or quanxwin.com. I have both those domains, so that's easy to find.
Okay, we'll put those in the show notes in the comments section. And okay, for everybody who is listening, if you have comments or questions for Quan, he's agreed to check back into the comments section on Facebook under the video. So feel free to put those in there. Okay, and I think that's it. I think we're running out of time, unfortunately. But I want to thank you, Quan, for being here. It's always
Thank you for having me.
It's always an inspiration to talk to you. So I appreciate that. Best of luck on those other states getting in there and with the company. And we'll see you soon. All right.
Okay.
If for people who are watching, if you enjoyed today's event, please check into our Southern California Writers Association Facebook page, or you can also go to SCWA Writers Online, our YouTube channel, to find Quan's interview or other interviews like this. So until next Wednesday, please stay safe and keep writing.